The film opens up as a moderately aged man named Mark gets up promptly in the first part of the day and starts sprucing up. Peculiarly, he sees that the water supply and power in his loft are out. Regardless of this, Imprint some way or another prepares for work, yet as he is going to leave, he finds the fundamental entryway solidly locked. Simultaneously, he additionally loses his telephone organization. At the point when he takes a stab at opening the entryway, he sees that it has been closed with a sealant from outside. Troubled, Imprint goes to the window to get some natural air, yet shockingly, even it is fixed closed. Right then, he sees others in the contrary structure beating on their windows for help. He likewise sees a gathering wearing hazardous materials suits and wandering around the area. Disregarding this, Imprint gets his mallet and attempts to tear the entryway open, yet winds up harming himself gravely. All of a sudden, somebody from the opposite side of Imprint's room breaks the wall and enters his loft. A hot-tempered kid, Sergey, and his younger sibling, Nico, barge in. Sergey immediately goes to check on the windows, but finds out that Mark is also stuck in the same situation as him. Soon, a next-door couple, Sally and Aiden, also come through the hole in the wall. It appears as if someone has locked the entire floor from outside. Aiden, being a government officer, is scared about the situation and predicts that something bad is going to happen. He desperately tries calling for help but to no avail. Meanwhile, the intercom of the apartment rings and a voice informs them to remain calm while the medical staff is trying to take control of the situation. This worries the already terrified group even more. Later, Sally, being a nurse, treats Mark's wounded hand and puts some stitches on it. As the two have small talk, Mark suddenly remembers his elderly neighbor, Enid. Wasting no time, he orders Sergey to break down the wall to her apartment and ventures inside. He finds her lying on the floor, but luckily, Enid is just sleeping. In the next scene, the entire group stands by the window to find out what's actually happening. They notice the hazmat suit-wearing workers building temporary medical tents in the neighborhood. Meanwhile, the intercom rings again, and this time, the voice suggests everyone stay indoors as there has been a noxious gas leak. However, Aiden does not buy it. He believes that the authorities are trying to hide something serious from them. Mark also spots a couple of medical workers spraying disinfectants in the building and escorting some infected people to their camp. Suddenly, when a man tries to set himself free and run away, he gets shot by a sniper. This shocks everyone looking from their windows. Shortly after, the hazmat-wearing employees start barging inside nearby apartments. When the residents don't comply with the protocols, they are dragged out. Witnessing this, Mark and the group realize that the medical staff can arrive at their apartment anytime. Hence, they start brainstorming ideas to break the entryway and departure. After some time pondering about a potential arrangement, Imprint recollects that he has a few destructive synthetic compounds in his condo that can be utilized to soften the sealant and eventually open the entryway. The gathering quickly begins looking for the synthetic substances. When they find it, Imprint blends them and makes a combination. He then, at that point, pours it on the lower part of the fundamental entryway, and shockingly, the arrangement works. The sealant is right away relaxed, and after the gathering pushes the entryway energetically, it at long last opens. Following this, the gathering begins concocting a strategy so they can arrive at security without being gotten. One thing's without a doubt, they must know about the sharpshooters stowing away at the highest point of the structure. While they are talking about the countermeasures, Enid understands that Nikyu has disappeared. Thus, everybody leaves the arrangement and starts searching for the kid. In the interim, a panicked Nikyu has slithered down through the air vent. He arrives at one more floor and notification 2 or 3 hazardous materials wearing staff attempting to persuade a lady to accompany them. They even infuse her with a narcotic. However, unexpectedly, the lady begins hacking plentifully and falls oblivious. Maybe the air has been tormented with something dangerous. In the interim, Imprint at long last tracks down Niku and tosses a shoddy rope to haul him out of the vent. Be that as it may, before the kid can get it, the hazardous materials wearing staff spot him and pull him away. Dreading for his sibling's life, Sergey snatches a play club and runs down the stairs, while Imprint follows him intently. Before long, the two methodology the hazardous materials folks and a rankled Sergey attacks one of them. The man passes on the spot, and after this, Sergey gets the other staff part and powerfully takes her to their loft. Sally goes through her possessions and tracks down 2 or 3 smoke explosives. This makes her suspect that something is off about whatever is going near. Mark attempts to investigate the female staff, yet Sergey hauls her to the window and presentations her to the other people with the note, "I've got one." After tying the girl up, Mark speaks with her gently and asks her what's going on. The girl introduces herself as Hazel and informs the group that they are there to help. Hearing this, Mark tries to remove her protective hazmat suit, but she gets scared and shrugs him away. This convinces Mark that their place has been infected with some sort of virus. He then threatens her to reveal everything, and now, with her life on the line, Hazel finally starts speaking. She reveals that the entire area has been plagued with a deadly virus that can kill people within hours. The symptoms include vigorous coughing, difficulty in breathing, and even blindness. Although the scientists have been working tirelessly to find a cure, nothing conclusive has been found. Mark inquires as to why all the communication systems have been shut down, to which Hazel responds that the government doesn't want the general public to know about the virus. The more people panic, the more difficult it will be to contain the virus. She also reveals that the people in the room have a 50-50 chance of contracting the virus. Hearing all this, Sergei once again becomes angry. He quickly grabs a knife and tears out her protective clothing. This terrifies Hazel, so she reaches out to her pocket and takes out an injection. But before she could use it, Sergei snatches it from her hand and keeps it with himself. As everyone looks at her in disbelief, Hazel reveals that the vaccine is still in its testing mode, and there's no assurance that it will work. Hence, the best thing to do right now is to stay indoors until the authorities take care of the situation. At night, while the whole group is discussing the measures to get out of the place, Hazel sneaks her hand from the zip lock and tries to escape. But before she could reach the door, Sergei pins her to the ground and starts beating her. Mark tries to stop him but ends up facing the wrath of Sergei. The uproar at last stops when Sergei accidentally slaps Nikyu and makes him cry. Afterward, the gathering sees an irate crowd of individuals walking towards their structure. Maybe they additionally need to stand up to Hazel to find out about the current condition. At this point, the wide range of various hazardous materials wearing staff have either been killed or pursued away. Terrified, Hazel advises the gathering to keep out the crowd at any expenses, as they could have been contaminated with the infection. This cautions the gathering, and they rapidly block the entry with a weighty item. Before long, the crowd likewise shows up and begins beating on the entryway. Sally goes close to the entryway and attempts to quiet them down, yet rather gets hit on the neck by a wrecked piece of glass. With time expiring, Sergei tosses the smoke bomb at the furious individuals and hauls Sally to their loft. Unfortunately, it is as of now late and Sally has lost a great deal of blood. Despite the fact that Hazel makes an honest effort to save her, she can't. This demolishes everybody, particularly Aiden, who separates and goes to the next room. In the accompanying scene, after the gathering wraps Sally's body with a piece of fabric, they look for Aiden yet can't find him anyplace. It just so happens he has proactively gotten away from the condo wearing Hazel's hazardous materials suit. At the point when he arrives at outside, different occupants botch him for a clinical staff and promptly encompass him. They hassle him for antibodies and begin pounding him. All at once, the marksmen shoot an admonition shot, provoking everybody, with the exception of Aiden, to take off from the spot. Unfortunately, notwithstanding Aiden wearing a hazardous materials suit, he is recognized as a tainted patient and shot to death. Somewhere else, Sergei goes out to check the entry and notification, a gathering of inhabitants surging toward them. He requests that his leftover gathering move out of the room quickly. In any case, Imprint would rather not let Hazel be, so he attempts to unfasten her. In any case, before he can do as such, a Madden Sergei takes him out with a play club. This leaves Hazel in a shaky situation with nowhere to hide. After some time, Marks regains consciousness and rushes to search for Nikyu and the others. When he peers through the window, he notices two hazmat guys preparing to release poisonous gas around the building. Soon, he finds his group and immediately attacks Sergei for knocking him out earlier. He is about to choke him to death, but Enid intervenes and calms him down. Just then, the poisonous gas is released everywhere, prompting the group to rush to the roof. On their way, Mark notices the dead body of Hazel and becomes sad. Meanwhile, a surviving resident from the building approaches Sergei for help, but is brutally beaten up by the hot-tempered brat. He keeps on beating the man until other residents swarm him and hold him captive. Sergei looks at Mark and screams for help, but the latter can do nothing other than close the door and continue their way to the rooftop. After a bit of struggle, Mark finally leads Enid and Nikyu to the rooftop. Since it is the first time in days that they are breathing fresh air, they decide to sleep there. The following morning, Mark wakes up and starts getting ready to escape from the building. However, when he tries waking the old Enid up, she doesn't budge. It turns out that she passed away in her sleep. Now, with only little Nikyu left by his side, Mark wants to protect him at all costs. He tells the boy to close his eyes for as long as he can and pretend as if he is playing a game. Then, he carries Niku on his back and brings him downstairs. On the way, Mark comes across a lot of dead bodies and becomes distraught, yet he still carries on. His determination finally pays off as the duo successfully escapes the building. Mark looks around for help, but no one is there. Even the contamination camps have been deserted. Suddenly, he hears an announcement going around, suggesting people stay indoors. If anyone other than a medical personnel is seen, they will be apprehended. As a result, Mark puts on a hazmat suit and proceeds to get out of the area with Niku. Unfortunately, just after a few minutes, they are confronted by a man from the opposite building, who mistakes Mark for one of the medical staff. He mentions that his wife died because of the virus and that the authorities have taken his daughter away. He then grabs Niku and points a sharp piece of glass at him. Mark tries his best to make the man understand that he, too, is a civilian, but his efforts are futile. Just then, Niku gets away from the man, but Mark is not so lucky. He is stabbed in the stomach and fatally wounded. Distraught, Niku helps Mark up, and as the two walk away slowly, the assailant realizes his mistake. After a while, they reach a nearby park, and Mark sits on a swing. He then gives Niku his cell phone and instructs him to make a call as soon as it gets network. Little Niku, oblivious that his only friend is dying, tries to get him up, but Mark pretends that he is tired. He lets Niku know that he will go along with him not long after sleeping. The young man trusts it and progresses forward with his way, while Imprint at long last capitulates to his wounds. In the last scene, Niku is caught by several hazardous materials wearing staff who infuse him with a narcotic. At the point when he wakes up, he winds up with different kids his age. One of the hazardous materials wearing staff approaches him and guarantees that everything will be fine. The film closes as Niku works his mobile phone and considers regardless of whether to settle on a decision.